Hello friends, welcome to our course Marketing Management Part 2. We are in week 5 and discussing about pricing, and as you can recall about the last two sessions, this is third session of this week or this module on pricing. In the first two sessions we have discussed about what is the role of pricing, and we have talked about the use of pricing as a strategic tool versus we have seen the blunders made by organizations, marketeer, where they price a product in isolation with respect to marketing mix of the marketing strategies, or something like where you don't uh, reinforce your positioning, or your pricing is not linked with your positioning. So, there basically you are not doing it correctly, in a sense like pricing is not used as a strategic tool. And then we have discussed about the consumer psychology, about how they process pricing, and then we have talked about facts like reference pricing, reference prices. Then we talked about a little bit about numerology, where we have the tendency to process the information about pricing from left to right, and that is why you will see that companies often pricing the product in a way like rupees 299 instead of 300. And then we also talked about basically how the what is the process of pricing, that is what we have started in the last class. And when we started discussing, we have looked into this 6 stage process of pricing, and we have discussed about these steps, that it setting the prices basically starts with the pricing objective, setting up the pricing objectives. Therein I have discussed about the 5 different types of strategies, and it is important to understand at this point of time that your pricing has to be linked with your marketing strategies, your business strategies. uh, it will happen that you will see that in an industry, that within the same industry sector, one player will be pricing it in one way, on the other side the other player might be pricing it in a different way, because they will have different kind of pricing objectives. uh, and then we have talked about the remaining stages that we are going to discuss in detail now. The second stage was determining the demand, then estimating the cost, and then analyzing competitors price mix, select pricing method, and select final prices. So, these were basically the 6 steps in this setting the price as a process. We discussed about the pricing objective. Not now I am going to talk about the remaining steps, and the second step is basically determining the demand. Now, inside determining the demand, the thing is that a marketeer, when he is planning, or he is going to design the pricing program for a product, he has to first determine what is the relationship between this demand and the price. This you can do by various qualitative quantitative methods, like regression analysis, or if you have the historical data, or if you have point of sale data, or if you can use conjoint analysis. So, different methods can be used for understanding this relationship between demand and the price. Now, once you have this very important relationship, that how the demand changes with the change in the price, you have to do another very important thing in this determining the demand, is you need to understand the price sensitivity of the customers. So, another important very important thing in this determining the demand is that you have to understand the price sensitivity. So, price sensitivity is or the price elasticity of demand is a measure of relative change in the quantity of a good or service to a change in its price, ceteris paribus. So, all the conditions remaining the same, how the demand of a product changes with a change in the price. So, this relative change in the quantity of demand with respect to the change in the price is termed as this price elasticity of demand. As you can see in these equations, one is basically this differential equation, where you can understand this elasticity is dq by q upon dp upon p, that is the change in the Q with respect to the change in P, and moreover in a more simplified manner as a point measure of a price elasticity of demand, you can say that when you move from one point to the other point in terms of the price, how the quantity changes. So, these are basically the two different type of formulation of this price sensitivity of demand. Now, you will see in this equation, if E is greater than 1, which means demand is elastic, that means you can understand if this ratio is greater than this ratio, then what will happen is the change in the price will lead to the change in demand at a faster pace. On the other side, when the E is less than 1, you can understand that demand is inelastic. So, the change in the price does not bring the change in the demand at a similar pace. So, in that case the demand is said to be more of inelastic nature. We will discuss about some of the reasons why this kind of thing happens, but another possibility in this formula is that if E equals to 1, you will find out that the way as you change the price, the quantity will also change in the similar proportion, though the sign of E will be negative, because one will go up. So, the second one the other one will go on the other side. So, the sign of E will be most likely in the negative sign. I think this graph depicts or makes you understand things in a better way, that how the changes in the price in these two graphs, the red one and the blue one, you can see that one is basically elastic demand at the blue one. So, the small change in the price, you can see this small change in the price, you can see that the corresponding change in the demand is relatively huge. So, this is a basically demand of elastic good, where probably a small change in the price leads to a very sharp change in the demand. On the other side, this is an inelastic demand, in the sense that despite the huge change in the price, the change in the demand is very minuscule. So, you can understand that the demand is not varying at the similar pace as probably the demand is as probably the prices are changing. Now, the thing is what leads to less price sensitivity, that is very important as a marketeer to understand. As a marketeer, probably my effort to should be that customers should have an attitude, or they should have a behavioral pattern or their intention, so that they are less price sensitive. We have discussed about in brands that customers generally tend to be less price sensitive, and that is what a marketeer's aim is, that any basically competitive threat will not affect you so much. So, what are the factors leading to less price sensitivity? The first one is that product is more distinctive. So, the more the product is distinctive from its competitive offering in terms of whether it is functionality or it is image. Image is even difficult to break in terms of its distinctivity, that you can make a similar kind of product, but it is very difficult to basically have the similar kind of image to basically occupy in the minds of the customer. So, the more a product is distinctive, the customers are less sensitive to the price changes or any competitive offering for that matter. Then the buyers are less aware of the substitute. That is another very important fact about this price sensitivity, is the cases where you see that as a consumer, as a customer, we do not know much about what are the substitute which are available. In that case also, we probably may not look too much into the price, or price negotiation will not be an important factor in the purchase process, because we are not aware of too many options. So, our basically approach is limited by that. You will see that in the case of pharmaceutical products, some of the pharmaceutical product, that this case exists, that we do not know what is the substitute of a particular medicine. Whatever brand has been written, and then that case we will be ready to pay if we can afford. So, whatever price is labeled on that. Buyers cannot easily compare the quality of the substitute. Another important thing, the substitutes are available, you know about the substitute, but the problem lies in the fact that you do not differentiate, or you as a consumer do not possess the knowledge, or you do not have the expertise to compare the two substitute. In that case, what happens is, like, again you cannot compare, so you cannot decide which one is better, and in that case your attitude will more or less be similar to what like previous situation, that you will be less price sensitive in those situation. Then the expenditure is a small part of buyer's total income. The fact is that when something is very small, so the changes is maybe even a higher change. So you see, if something is just 1% of your total monthly expenditure, now supposedly the price of that product changes from 1 rupees to 1.5, for you the as a monthly change in your expenditure, this is just 100.5. So your the for 50% change gets reflected only 0.5% of the change in your overall expenditure, and that will also make you in most of the cases less price sensitive. Another fact is the expenditure is small compared to total cost of the end product, and one more thing is that part of the cost is paid by another party. So this is what is another important aspect of the purchase process, that as a marketeer you have to understand who is actually the person who is paying for that kind of purchase. So if there is a third party which is paying for the particular purchase, in that case also you will see that consumers are less sensitive to price, like probably in the case of what do you say, an insurance company, that a little bit of change in the, probably in that case the customer will be ready to purchase the parts from the company directly, because the insurance company is paying. On the other side, when he has to pay from his side, in that case he may go to the secondary market and look for the negotiations. So those kind of situations also exist. The product is used with the previously purchased assets. The product is assumed to have high quality and prestige. Now this is another very important fact related to price sensitivity, is that in the case of luxury product which are associated with our esteem or our social status, we do not look for a price that much. In fact, sometimes the more the price, the better is the quality, is the sort of perception that we hold, and in that case we also exhibit lesser amount of price sensitivity. So with this, actually we complete this the step 2 of this process, and then I will go into this estimating the cost part, and we will look into this part, the types of cost, accumulated production, like how the change how the basically the learning curve affects the unit cost of the product. Then we will look into this activity based costing and target costing. So first I am going to talk about the different types of the cost in the production of a product. So we are going to talk about the fixed cost, we are going to talk about variable cost, total cost, which is the sum of fixed cost and the total cost, then average cost per unit, and cost at different level of productions. So now I am going to talk about, first thing is what is total cost. So total cost is basically the sum of fixed cost plus variable cost. The cost which is required in the production, the storage and the distribution of the product is the total cost. It will include the fixed cost as well as variable cost. I am going to talk about what is fixed cost and what is variable cost, but you will see that in this this graph you will see that the total cost is not starting from for 0 unit, you will not have the 0 cost total cost, because you have certain level of fixed cost, but after that you will see that there is a straight line, because add to that fixed cost, that the more the number of unit that you produce, it will be directly proportional to the variable cost. So what are these fixed costs and the variable cost? Fixed cost is a cost that does not change with an increase or decrease in the amount of goods or services produced. Fixed costs are expenses that have to be paid by a company independent of any business activity. Now you see what is fixed cost, that irrespective of whether you produce in your plant that you are not producing anything, whether you are producing one unit of a particular product or you are producing probably 10,000 units of that products for say that is the maximum quantity that can be produced by that plant. So, that is the plant capacity. So, in that case you will see that the fixed cost will remain same. What comes inside the fixed cost will help you in understanding what is this fixed cost is that it will includes the monthly wages of the employees, it will includes the cost of the equipment, the cost of the machinery, other the things like marketing and sales expenditure, which are more or less which are constant in the nature, that you have to pay irrespective of the number of units that you are actually producing or selling in the market. So, you will see with the fixed cost, the fact is that it remains constant, but then in this graph you will also observe that it reaches to a next level suddenly after a particular point. So, basically if you understand in mathematical terms, it is basically a step function, it remains constant up to a particular point and then it goes up. The reason for this kind of thing is that up to a particular activity level, or as I have said that to a particular capacity of a plant or a particular capacity of a production unit, you will see that the cost remain constant. So, if a plant can produce 10,000 unit, so the fixed cost will remain same up to this point, but if you want to produce the one very next unit, then you have to have another plant, and in that case that the again the fixed cost will increase by one more plant, cost of one more plant. So, you will reach to this level and it will take you to from 10,000 one unit to 20,000 unit, and the similar way it will goes like that. Now, understand the fact that in this fixed cost curve, as you have already seen that the depending on the particular level of activity or the maximum capacity, the total fixed cost will remain constant, that the whatever number of units you are going to produce, the number of the fixed cost will remain same. Now, if I divide that fixed cost or the as you can see in this graph, this is coming down very sharply from the number of units, the more number of units you produce, you will see that your unit cost or the unit fixed cost comes down very sharply, and that is what we call as economies of scale, that because the more the number of units that you produce in a particular production unit, you will see that the fact that it will get the fixed cost will get divided over those number of units. So, if you have a large fixed cost, the fact is that the more the number of units that you produce or the maximum capacity, the tendency among the managers in those plants will be that they can produce the maximum number or the utilize the full capacity of the plant. So, the fixed cost will get divided over that entire capacity, and your unit fixed cost, the proportion of unit fixed cost will be very less. So, your overall fixed cost of the product will also be very less, or it will be the probably the minimum possible level. Now, the second type of cost is basically the variable cost. Now, what is variable cost? Variable costs are those costs that vary depending on the number of unit that you produce. So, what happens here is that you can see in this graph that if you do not produce anything, your cost is actually 0, your variable cost is 0. So, if you do not produce anything, you are not incurring any cost. On the other side, as the number of units that you produce, proportionately your cost will increase in the similar way that the number. So, the basically the total cost, total variable cost is the number of units that you produce multiplied by the unit variable cost. Now, what comes inside the variable cost? The variable cost will include the things like the cost of the raw material. So, the more the output is, more is the cost of that raw material. Similarly, that the processing charges or the processing that goes into that the processing of that raw material. So, that more that you basically produce, the more will be the processing cost, like the consumption of the utilities like electricity, water. So, the more you produce, the more of these inputs will go in the production process. So, you can understand that all of these costs will have this kind of behavior. Now, One thing which one has to understand is with respect to this total cost, which includes fixed cost and the variable cost, is that average cost. Now, average cost is basically the total cost divided by units of the output. Now, this if I divide this total cost in total fixed cost plus total variable cost divided by the units of output. So, what I get is the average total cost is basically the average fixed cost plus average variable cost, which is equivalent to almost like variable cost. Now, I will stop here. When we will meet into the next session, we will discuss about some of these other cost functions, and then we will also talk about some of the other related concept which are related with this topic. Thank you very much.